This is Joe Biden, the resident of the United States. On June 5th, exactly 5 months before the 2024 election, the Wall Street Journal published an article titled, "Behind Closed Doors, Biden Shows Signs of Slipping," to which the world replied, "No kidding." When President Biden met with congressional leaders in the West Wing in January, he spoke so softly at times that some participants struggled to hear him. He read from notes to make obvious points, paused for extended periods, and sometimes closed his eyes for so long that some in the room wondered whether he had tuned out. The article is based on interviews with more than 45 people over several months. Most of those who said that Biden performed poorly were Republicans, but some Democrats said he showed his age in several of the exchanges. And none of this should be surprising to anyone who has a functioning brain. I mean, we see signs of slipping nearly every single time that Joe Biden makes a public appearance.
My fellow Americans, I congratulate the Presidential Freedom Medal recipients and their families. They want to undo what they finally got done. And then what we finally got done is to make up for it. So-called forever chemicals, referred to as PFAS, P-FAS-. 4 more years. Pause.
4 more years. 4 more.
And despite all of the evidence, Democrats and the media, same thing, would have you believe that Joe Biden, who you see stumble and bumble in public like every single appearance, is a sharp and vigorous leader behind the scenes. Yeah, sure. And they also want you to believe that the Wall Street Journal has basically now become the National Enquirer.
So this was a classic hit piece, probably ordered up by the 93-year-old, 5th-time married Rupert Murdoch over the weekend. Probably, you know? But I mean, this piece is so tilted, so off the mark.
So what Mike Barnacle is saying is that it's fake news. Got it.
Is he 81 years old? Yes. Is he a bit slower in terms of his reactions to some things? Probably. That I don't know. We don't know.
24 hours later.
Distinguished guests, please welcome the Honorable Lloyd J. Austin III, Secretary of Defense of the United States of America.
So the Wall Street Journal article prominently features direct quotes from former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. He would ramble, said McCarthy, who led the Republican side of talks to increase the debt ceiling. He always had cards. He couldn't negotiate another way. And near the end of those talks, McCarthy claims that Joe Biden forgot certain parts of the deal that had already been negotiated. He was going back to all the old stuff that had been done for a long time, McCarthy said. And he was shocked when I'd say, "No, Mr. President, we talked about that meetings ago. We are done with that." And all of that sounds plausible, right? I mean, we are talking about the guy who needs notes with directions on how to enter a room and how to sit in the chair. So again, sounds legit. But of course, Morning Joe Scarborough, along with his team of Democrat sycophants, went all out to discredit the Journal's article by attacking former Speaker McCarthy.
From Politico last year, quote, "McCarthy mocked Biden's age and mental acuity in public."
In public, like he did in this article.
While privately telling allies that he found the president sharp and substantive in their conversations, a contradiction that left a deep impression on the White House. This from the New York Times. Privately, Mr. McCarthy has told allies that he has found Mr. Biden to be mentally sharp in meetings.
But the question is, according to whom? A legitimate reporter would write a statement like that and say, according to people close to the situation or according to Republican sources familiar with the matter. But in these two articles, neither the New York Times or Politico backed up the assertion with any proof. But it gets worse.
And this from The Hill. Very professional, very smart, very tough at the same time. McCarthy told reporters at the Capitol of his talks with Biden.
But The Hill actually misquoted Kevin McCarthy. Here's the full quote.
I thought his team was very professional, very smart, very tough at the same time. So.
Wow. A media outlet lying about what a Republican said? To make Joe Biden look good? I know you're shocked, So, Morning Joe's proof that Kevin McCarthy was a liar was a fake quote by McCarthy, and then he repeated it over and over again.
McCarthy mocked Biden's age and mental acuity in public while privately telling allies in private he found the president to be sharp and substantive. He called him very professional, very smart, very tough. And this same meeting, again, that the Wall Street Journal is basing this story on Kevin McCarthy's lies. Kevin McCarthy's lies.
And Joe Scarborough is a liar because the Wall Street Journal article actually shows the full Kevin McCarthy quote. When the deal was coming together, though, McCarthy wasn't as openly critical of the president. He said he enjoyed meeting with him and he praised Biden's staff. I thought his team was very professional, very smart, very tough at the same time, he told reporters in May 2023.
And the fact that the Wall Street Journal knew these quotes were out there, the editors saw that Kevin McCarthy had a habit of saying one thing in public, lying in public, and then privately telling his aides that Biden was sharp, that he was cogent, that he was substantive.
So instead of crapping all over the Wall Street Journal's editors and accusing them of not doing their job, Morning Joe should be yelling at the Hill and the reporter Brett Samuels for faking a quote. But, that doesn't help Joe Biden, so, never mind.
Very professional, very smart, very tough.
Now, to be honest, the Wall Street Journal article wasn't the expose that the left is making it out to be, because we've all seen Joe Biden in public, and we can all guess that he's exactly the same behind the scenes, right? During a meeting on increasing the debt ceiling, the president spoke so softly and with such little enunciation that attendees said they struggled to hear what he was saying. And this is all totally plausible. Take, for example, Time Magazine's recent interview with Joe Biden. During the interview, there are 3 recorded instances where it's not clear what Joe Biden was saying, and they had to put unintelligible into transcript. Imagine sitting down with Joe Biden, supposedly the most powerful man in the world, and you're like, yeah, I don't know what the hell he said. I should note that when Time Magazine put out the transcript of their interview with Donald Trump, there were no unintelligible instances. And I should also note that the Trump interview transcript is 3 times longer than Biden's. And I highly suggest reading the transcripts of both interviews. Trump's was substantive and talking about the future of this country and pushing back against the Time reporter's BS. And when you read Biden's, it's like the same old, same old. The interviewers posed the following to Biden. The US under your leadership has been unable to deter crises. First in Afghanistan, then Ukraine, Israel, and mounting tensions in the Far East. Is America still able to play the role of world power that it played in World War II and in the Cold War? Biden's response, of course, was that much of what is happening in the world is Donald Trump's fault, and that it's going to get worse if Donald Trump is reelected. Because of course he did. And when the Time interviewer said to Biden, "You've expanded Donald Trump's trade war with China, Mr. President, which you once criticized," Biden's response was, "No, I haven't." Which is 2 lies. Because A, back in May, Joe Biden literally increased tariffs on China, and B, during his presidential campaign, literally criticized Donald Trump's tariffs on China.
Would you keep the tariffs?
No, hey, look, who said Trump's idea is a good one?
Some feel that.
Some 2 or 3 people. We're going after China in the wrong way.
And when Time asked about potential price increases that tariffs on China can bring, Biden said, "I made it clear to Putin from the very beginning that..." Except, of course, Putin has nothing to do with China, let alone Chinese tariffs. So Time added an editor's note that Biden appeared to mean President Xi, not Putin. Wow, so understanding. And speaking of Vladimir Putin, Joe Biden recently made a dubious claim.
I've known him for over 40 years. He's concerned me for 40 years. He's not a decent man. He's a dictator.
But the New York Post pointed out that Joe Biden couldn't have known Vladimir Putin for 40 years considering that Putin was a KGB agent from 1975 to 1991. Furthermore, prior to becoming president, Joe Biden had only met Putin one other time, and that was back in March 2011. In other words, no, Joe Biden hasn't known Putin for 40 years, so he's either A, lying, or B, Joe Biden actually believes what he's saying. Either one is disqualifying.
The idea that we become semi-isolationists now, which some are talking about, I mean, the idea we had to wait all those months just to get the money for Iraq because we were waiting, I mean, it's just.
And he just confused Ukraine with Iraq, which is why the majority of the American people believe that Joe Biden is not mentally capable of serving a second term. Here's Martha McCallum on the matter.
In terms of voters saying who is more mentally and physically fit to serve, on those measures, and there it is up on the screen, the former President Trump is plus 21 in this polling, and it goes down, the list of mentally sound and sharp, physically healthy, or not, quote, too old.
There is not one poll, not a single poll, where Joe Biden is considered to be more physically and mentally fit for office than Donald Trump. And Senator Chris Coons explains why.
The poll you just showed reflects the fact that there's been a lot of coverage of minor slips, of small ways in which President Biden reflects the fact that all of us who have demanding lives in public service sometimes misspeak.
Oh, I see. It's not that Biden bloopers and blunders on the daily. It's that the media is covering Joe Biden in a negative way nonstop. The reality is that every major news outlet that isn't named Fox News or the New York Post refuse to even acknowledge that Joe Biden is a train wreck. Instead, they repeat the Democrat talking point that Joe Biden is amazing.
He is sharp, he is engaged, and he is commanding.
Well, right now, I'm going to play a clip that disputes every single word in that statement. Enjoy.
Politics with the war. What was that?
He is sharp, he is engaged, and he is commanding.
Anyway, that's it for now. Follow me on X at Don't Walk Run. And while you're at it, please subscribe to the channel. As always, thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time, if there is next time.